Welcome dear students for this final lecture of chapter number 2, that is taxonomic keys and zoological nomenclature. I am Mr. Amol Handore, working as assistant professor at Department of Zoology. Welcome you for this last lecture of chapter number 2. So in previous lecture we have started with zoological nomenclature and today we are going to conclude this topic. So let's take a brief recap of previous lecture. So in last lecture we had introduced with what is mean by nomenclature, history of nomenclature, need of the nomenclature and different kinds of names which are used in the taxonomy. Today's study objectives will be introduction to terminologies like synonyms and homonyms, followed by what is mean by author name, law of priority and genus name, kinds of types and its importance in taxonomy, and finally we will conclude it with nature of scientific names and different nomenclature systems. So let's begin with the first objective, that is synonyms and homonyms. So what are synonyms? If more than one name is given to similar taxon, then all these names are called as synonyms. So let us understood this. So the first published name is referred to as a valid name and it is called as senior synonym. On the other hand, whichever names which come later are called as junior synonyms. So whenever this name to be finalized, the senior synonym is always considered the name to be given to that particular organism and all the junior synonyms are rejected. So there are basically two types of junior synonyms. First type is called as objective synonym. So what is objective synonym? When the name which is proposed for a particular specimen is already used or preoccupied, then it is called as objective synonym. And the subjective synonym is the second type, where the synonym is only in the opinion of one or more worker of that particular taxonomic group. So here in subjective synonym, this synonym is subject to opinion of only one or other person of that particular group. Let's take an example to understand this. So here, suppose in example number 1, the name Darinus oratus was proposed in the year 1905 and similar name was proposed for another taxon by another scientist in 1981, then the senior synonym is always accepted. So let's take an example. Suppose for similar organism, the first name was proposed in the year 1905, that is Darinus oratus. However, later on another name was given to the similar organism. Then the first given name is considered as the most accepted name and the latter name which was given is called as junior synonym and it is rejected. Similarly, in this example, Arius Walker was the first name given in 1847 for a particular species. Later on, same species was named by another name, that is Australomorphel Gerald. Then in such condition, the first name is always accepted as the right name. Now we come to the second terminology, that is homonyms. So what is homonyms? So homonyms arise when same name is used for two or more different taxa. Synonyms is given to the same taxon. If the same name different names are given to the same taxon, it is called as synonym. Is used for two or more different taxa, then it is called as homonym. So here also there is a senior synonym, sorry. So now let's understood the second terminology, that is homonyms. So if same name is used for two or more different taxa, then it is called as homonyms. So here we should understood the difference between synonyms and homonyms. In synonyms, the same name is used for the same taxon, but here same name is used for two or more different taxon. So taxon here means it can be name given to the family and genus. So here also the senior homonym means the first published valid name. For example, suppose this name, that is Psychophila karnatakensis, was coined by these two scientists in the year 1968, and for another taxon, suppose this name is given for scorpion and this name is given for birds, and this junior synonym is Psychophila karnatakensis, that is same name is used by Mukherjee in 1981, then this name was first given, so this is called a senior homonym and this is the accepted, and this scientist has to give another name for the species which he have discovered. So the senior homonym is always the valid name and junior homonym will be rejected, and it rejected means it will be replaced by another name because this name is already occupied. So this is applicable to both synonyms as well as homonyms. So as per the code, we have studied IUCN code. So as per one of the law of this code, it is said that the homonym may be replaced, but before that the person who has coined that senior homonym has to inform to the person who has coined the junior homonym, and he should give the opportunity to replace the name. So in this example, suppose Joseph and his colleague should tell Mukherjee et al. That you should change this name, and they will change the name. If that does not occur, then they can have the chance to report to the IUCN, and the IUCN will do the renaming. So always senior homonym is accepted and junior homonym is rejected, or it may be replaced by another name. Okay, many a time you find the name of scientist in the brackets after scientific name. So typically the species name is followed by the surname of the author. For example, Panicum dactylon Linnaeus. So what is the meaning of this? That Linnaeus was the first person who has invented this species or who has discovered this species. Sometimes there can be revision in the names. For example, suppose this scientist person transferred the species dactylon to the genus Solanum. So from Panicum genus, suppose he transferred this species to Solanum genus, then the name of the author of species is enclosed in brackets. So now, since Linnaeus was the first scientist to discover this species, his name will only follow as the name of the author in bracket. So even though it is transferred by this another scientist, the name will be Solanum dactylum Linnaeus. Also, there is another convention that name of the reviser also can be added after the name of the author. So here in this example, this person, that is person, has identified, or he was the reviser who transferred this species from one genus to the second genus. So the name of the species will be written as Solanum dactylon linnaeus, followed by the name of the reviser, that is person. So adding the reviser name in such cases is strictly followed in botany but not in zoology. Okay, so this rule is followed of reviser in botany, but it is not so strictly followed in zoology. Okay, now we come to the second part of today's discussion. What is law of priority? So according to this rule, the valid name of taxon is the oldest available name applied to it, provided it conforms with the rule of nomenclature. That means the senior synonym or homonym will always be accepted name. The junior names which come later in next few years will always be rejected. So the rule of priority is to promote stability of the names. Okay, and the word priority actually means priority of publication. So if a name is published earlier, that name is the accepted name or the valid name for particular species. So it is also called as a legitimate name. So let's take an example. There are these various species. So suppose a species of insect was identified and it was named as Epitramus erythrogastrus by the scientist Cameron in the year 1988. Now suppose later on same insect species was named by another scientist by this another name, same species was named by third scientist by another name, and same species was named by another scientist by some different name. So thus there is only single species of insect, right? So there is a conflict now. One species is getting 4 names. So which name to be accepted? So the first published name, which is the accepted, but however it should follow the rules of nomenclature. That means genus name followed by the species name. So since this scientist has properly written the scientific name, genus name followed by the species name, so this name is the accepted. This is called as law of priority. So since Cameron's name is the earliest legitimate name, it is accepted over the other name, and therefore this name is called as senior synonym, and these latter 3 are called as junior synonyms. Okay, now we come to the next part of discussion, genus name. How to write genus name? So we know that genus is the taxonomic category which includes more than 2 species which have common phylogenetic origin. So this rank is above the species rank. In case of species, reproductive isolation plays a very important role to give rise to multiple species. That is not so with the genera or the generic rank. Always generic name, that is genus name, is uninomial, means single name consisting of a single word, and then it always starts with a capital letter. Also the species name, this generic name is always written in the Latin or the Greek language. Why this language is preferred, we'll see. Then the gender of a generic name, this is decided by the original author. So there are different types of generic name or the genus name. It can be based on mythological names like Venus, Diana, sometimes proper names used by the ancients like Cleopatra. Then there are some modern patronymics with proper suffix. We know that what is meant by patronymy, that means a person who has discovered or who was associated with discovery of that species, or even some another name is dedicated with that particular name. Then last is names terminating with a consonant like IUS, IA or IUM. So for example, Boschius, Bausekia or Bausekium. These are the names which are ending with a consonant. Okay, now we come to the next part of today's discussion. What is meant by type and its importance in taxonomy. Now type means that specimen which was used by the taxonomist for the nomenclature of that particular specimen. So object or specimen that serves for the naming of a taxon is known as type. And the methodology which is used for fixing the type is known as typification. Now this type may or may not be of the typical member of the taxon. So there are different types. We will see in the next slide. So this type is the specimen which has the description given to that taxonomic description while explaining the features of that particular specimen. So a type specimen of a genus is called as type species, and a type specimen of a family is called as a type genus. So type is nothing but the preserved specimen based on which the scientific name was given, and this is preserved so that whenever later on any new taxonomist finds out a new species, he can compare the features of that new species with the previous species, and if there are new characteristics are present, then he may publish it as a new species. So Mayer and Blackwelder have proposed different kinds of types. However, the Code of Zoological Nomenclature recognizes 6 types. In botany, you have more than these types. So the first one is holotype, then paratype, lactotype, syntype, and neotype. So let's study each one by one. So the very important one is holotype. So suppose I am a taxonomist and I have discovered a new species, and I have found out the characters which are present only in that particular species, and I am ensured that this is the new species. Then I will deposit the specimen as a holotype. So the single specimen selected by the original author to represent that particular taxon is referred to as the holotype, and he will publish it at the time of original description. Now there comes the second kind, that is called as paratype. So what is meant by paratype? Suppose at the time of collection I have collected more than 2 specimens. Suppose I have collected more than 2 specimens of the same organism. Then the first one is called as paratype, and the second remaining specimen is called as paratype. Then the first collected specimen is called as holotype, and the second specimen which is remaining is called as paratype. So after labeling the holotype, any remaining specimen of this series is called as paratype. So in case if any damage happens to the holotype, you have this second specimen available for the comparison of characters if you find out any new species of the same genus. So after holotype and paratype, we come to the third kind, that is called as lectotype. Suppose at the type of publication the author does not submit holotype, then later on if you have more than one specimen, then that subsequent worker may submit it as a new specimen, that is called as lectotype. Then comes the fourth kind, that is called as syntype. Now what is syntype? Suppose if author fails to designate a specimen as holotype or lectotype as well, and any of two or more specimens are available of the same description of that particular taxon, then it is designated as syntype. Okay, so all these specimens are called as syntypes. Now the fifth one is neotype. Now if even holotype, lectotype and or the syntype all are absent or have been lost due to they may have been destroyed, then the first reviser, a person of that particular group who may select a specimen which fully fits to the original description, then that specimen is called as neotype. Okay, so say for example, I have deposited a specimen as a holotype or based on which a lectotype and syntype is available, but later on due to some issue those got destroyed, then there is no specimen available of that particular species. Then a taxonomist will find out a specimen which exactly fits to the characteristics which are mentioned, and it is called as neotype. Sometimes even an allotype concept is there. However, this allotype concept is not used nowadays by most of the scientists. So according to this, a type specimen is chosen like according to this rule 72A of Zoological Code given by IUCN. Allotype is used to a paratype specimen of opposite sex to the holotype. That means the first specimen based on which a species is described is called as holotype. Suppose that is male, so the opposite sex is female. So that opposite sex specimen, suppose I have two specimens and I have described this male specimen as the holotype and I have deposited it as the holotype, then the female specimen of the same species is called as allotype. However, most recent workers have abandoned the use of this terminology, that is allotype. Okay, now we come to the final part of today's discussion, nature of the scientific name. So the zoological nomenclature is independent of botanical nomenclature and vice versa. So botanical nomenclature follows some rules and similarly zoological nomenclature have some terminology or the system of nomenclature. General principle of both zoological and botanical nomenclature are scientific name of organism is uninomial for genera level or subgenera level or higher categories. So you have a one word name, say for genus, family or the higher categories like phylum, and you always have a binomial name for species. So Homo sapien, scientific name, so this is the binomial name. You have a trinomial name for subspecies, so Homo sapien sapien, this is the trinomial name. Always Latin is the language used for biological nomenclature. Now the question is why to use Latin as a language? Because Latin is not spoken in any country. So there is no national bias for any national language can be avoided by using a Latin language for the nomenclature. Now we come to the nomenclature system. There are three type of system of nomenclature: mononomial nomenclature, binomial nomenclature, and trinomial nomenclature. So let's study the first system, mononomial nomenclature. So this is a system of assigning name of one word. Mono means single, nomial means word. So when you give one word name to organism, it is called as mononomial nomenclature. And this system is used basically for the higher taxa from genus to the kingdom level. So for example, writing the name of family, phylum or class, you use a mononomial nomenclature. Even for the genus, scientific name of animal from subgenera and above. Okay, so you have kingdom, division, class, phylum, order, family, genus, subgenus, species and subspecies. So from subgenus, genus and higher level, you always have a single name, that is mononomial nomenclature. These are either in the form of plural nouns or adjectives used as a nouns, and these are always singular nouns which are used as a genus and subgenus level. So whenever you are designating a genus name or a subgenus name, you give it in the form of a singular noun. Now there are different rules which are followed for giving this nomenclature. So we will study that in the last part. Now we come to the binomial nomenclature. Binomial means two name system or two word system. So this is widely accepted system of nomenclature throughout the world. Here two words are assigned to the name of organism. That's why it is called binomial nomenclature. This system was adopted and popularized by Carolus Linnaeus in his book Systema Nature. In this system, each organism is provided with two names. That's why it is called as a binomial or two name system. The first word of the name refers obviously genus name. It is always a noun, and the second word refers to species name, which is always a adjective. Genus name always begins with a capital letter and species name always begins with a small letter. So this is the rule, thumb rule, that genus name will always be with capital letter and species name always begin with a small letter. And both genus name and species name should be in a Latin or Greek language and written in the italics. Sometimes the taxonomists may follow the scientific name in full or the abbreviation form. Next, trinomial nomenclature. Here trinomial means three word system is used. So when you add subspecies to the binomial name, then it is called as a trinomial nomenclature. So this is extension of the binomial nomenclature. So here you have trinomen or the three worded name. So when along with a generic and species name, you give the name of the subspecies, it is called as a trinomial system. So for example, name of the dog is Canis familiaris. Canis is the genus, familiaris is the species. So the first name Canis is the genus name, second name is species name. Similarly, name of the lion is Felis, Leo, Linnaeus. So Felis is the genus name, Leo is species name. Linnaeus was the scientist who first proposed this name. But if you try to write down it in the trinomial system, it will be different. Even Carolus Linnaeus, the father of taxonomy, he has named his name in the trinomial system. So instead of Carolus Linnaeus, he used to carry his name as Carl von Linne. So we have already studied this IUCN, so I will not go into this. So let's take an example. Suppose the name of common crow is Corvus splendens. So this is a binomial name. If we have to write it in the form of trinomial system, so now this species of crow is found in India, Sri Lanka and Burma, but in different location you have the different subspecies. Therefore, you should add the name of subspecies. So in India, it is called as Corvus splendens splendens. So here you added the third name, that is the subspecies name. In Burma, it will be called as Corvus splendens incolens. So here this incolens is the subspecies name. Similarly, in Sri Lanka, the name will be Corvus splendens portugatus. Now we come to the final part of today's discussion. What are the rules of scientific nomenclature? So whenever we are writing the scientific name, it is necessary to follow certain international rules. First of all, the scientific name is genus name, species name and subspecies name, and it should be written or printed in italics. Genus name or species name must start with a capital letter always. It should be a noun. Species name or specific name must start with a small letter and it always should be an adjective. Generic name should be followed by the species name. Should always write the generic name first or the genus name first, followed by the species name. In case different scientists have named the same genus or species, the name which was published earlier or the first will be the accepted name. So we have understood what is meant by senior synonym and junior synonym. Family name ends with a suffix idea, and similarly genus name or the subfamily ends with the name inae. Name of the species which was used for the first time will be followed in the subsequent research papers. So name of the human may be written as Homo sapiens Linnaeus, because Linnaeus was the first who described this species of. All scientific name should be underlined when written or typed. So when you are typing it or writing it, it should be underlined. So all these are the basic rules of the nomenclature. So if we conclude today's lecture, we understood what is meant by synonym and homonym, what is meant by junior and senior, homonym and synonym. We understood the law of priority. The name which is published earlier should be the accepted name, and later on other names are called as junior, synonyms or homonyms. Then we studied 6 different types. Holotype is the first specimen which is the submitted for the describing that particular species, and later are the lectotype, syntype, neotype and all. And finally we studied the 3 systems of nomenclature, that is mononomial, binomial and trinomial system of nomenclature, and we understood the rules of the nomenclature. So with this we conclude today's lecture. Thank you.